Ready?
All right. Stay where you are.
Took it off.
Stay where you are. Let's go. Up under.
Ready?
Let's go.
Hey, I'm Bob Becker. Welcome to The Five. Now, normally we don't start the show out here. We usually start it in our studio, and everybody's in there now. But you know why? Because Eric is not here. He's supposed to be showing up for the show, but as usual, he's late. Bowling, would you come on? Let's go. We got a show. It's a live show. I've been trying to explain this to you. You don't ever listen to me. You were as wrong doing this as you are about Obama's debt.
Have a lot to talk about.
No, we have a lot to talk about, but let's get going. People are sitting in there waiting.
They can
It's
wait. Who's
live.
in there?
Come on, the show's on. Let's go. Come on. All right, now look. I got the numbers, finally got the numbers straight. You're wrong. We're going to get in here. We're going to talk to everybody about it. All right? Hey, Bowling finally showed up, everybody.
There's no way we're wrong
Well,
about that.
well.
There's no way.
Finally,
Andrea,
he showed up.
Andrea, there's no way we're wrong about
No,
this.
seriously. But
I know, we're never
I
right.
really do want to apologize to everybody because Bowling was late. But we're going to talk today about Barack Obama's numbers, the right numbers, and we're going to start with what Mr. Obama said last night about Mitt Romney.
I know Governor Romney came to Des Moines last week, warned about a prairie fire of debt. He left out some facts. You know, his speech was more like a cow pie distortion. The Republicans run up the tab, and then we're sitting there, and they've left the restaurant, and then they point, why'd you order all those steaks and martinis? And what he did not also tell you was that after inheriting a $1 trillion deficit, I signed $2 trillion of spending cuts into law.
Well, there you go. You're finally getting the numbers. You're getting them straight. You know, one of the things, I will say this, Mr. President, you're right. Republicans do drink martinis. Most Democrats drink beers, but I don't drink anything. But, you know, Eric, I've been trying to explain this to you over and over again. He did inherit a $1 trillion deficit from George Bush. He did cut $2 trillion in expenditures. And here's the interesting thing you guys never talk about when you talk about all the debt he's run up. Do you know that $2 trillion of that was for people going on Medicare and Social Security?
All right, well, can we get back to the numbers now?
I just gave you
know how
numbers.
you like the Pinocchios?
Yeah.
Well, President Obama got 3 Pinocchios from
Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post.
Yeah, I understand
because what they
Because he's a
what
Republican.
Oh,
He's a
yeah,
Republican.
right.
No. Do you have the full screen? We have the presidential spending. You can't refute this. This is coming directly from presidential spending from the White House. $9.7 billion a day, Obama. How do you cut this any other way, Bob? 6.8
He ran
plus
this
4.1.
yesterday.
It's exactly right, though. These are from the Treasury. Look at the bottom, Treasury Department.
Did you hear what I said? $2 trillion expended for people going on Medicare and Social Security. You don't care about
But
that?
Bob, there's not a single analyst who has looked at this first report that came out on Forbes.com that hasn't debunked it. And deservedly, sometimes Romney has gotten a Pinocchio or two, or sometimes even 4. And if you live by the Pinocchio, you die by the Pinocchio. And now you've got 3 Pinocchios for Obama's speech yesterday.
I'd rather
And he
take
also
3
talked
than
about
4.
cow pies. And this morning, I bought each of you a cow pie.
Thank you very
from
much.
Wisconsin.
I thought it was Romney who said it was
Thanks.
cow pies.
No.
He's never been near a cow pie in his life.
Oh, yeah, and Barack Obama has been near a cow pie.
He has.
Oh, you are so full of cow pies. I can't believe it. You're so full of cow pies.
Let me
Your
tell you
hairs are
something.
almost brown.
You guys are finally, it's settling in. It's finally settling in that Barack Obama has not spent the kind of money you said he has. It's been for Social Security, it's been for Medicare, and it's been to try to bail us out of a $1 trillion economy.
You're not counting that?
It wasn't his stimulus bill. It was a $1 trillion
It was
stimulus bill.
$800 billion, which $235 million was tax cuts. Billion was tax
But
cuts.
here's the point. If you're going to take credit for rescuing the economy the way that Barack Obama does, you either take credit for passing the second half of TARP, or you don't. You can't have it both ways. And the bottom line is we're running historic deficits. That's the bottom line. Take the stimulus out, take TARP out. There was an 8% increase in government spending, which is historic.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm going to eat this cow pie, Dana. Thank you.
You bet.
Just like Barack Obama's going to eat his word.
Let me take this. You want to take out, if you take out Social Security, Medicare, okay, take them out. You all love the Defense Department with that massive overspending. But let's
He cut it,
keep that in there.
He cut it.
He did not
He
cut
cut
it.
the military,
And
sure
second
did.
thing, then you like all this Homeland Security stuff, right? You like all that, all those
Oh, you
anti-terrorist
don't?
group.
Being safe,
You
you don't
take
think
it
that's
all out. You take it all out. You're now done with the discretionary spending of 13%. That's it. All the rest of it goes to all the things you love. So there you go.
Well, I recommend that everybody go to a great website. It's politicalmathblog.com. There's this guy. I'd love to meet you one day. I follow his charts. He can explain things so well. Go to his website. Check out the numbers from his perspective. And he's also got this debt and deficit road trip that explains to you in a way that I can understand what's actually happened. Plus, in this original analysis, I can't understand why in the world the White House led with this yesterday, because it really is leading with your chin. One of the things that happens is he doesn't take the hit for the original TARP payment, but he gets all the benefit from the repayments that the banks made. So the whole thing is based, what the Washington Post says today, the fact check, is that the beginning analysis was bad, the end numbers are bad, and everything in between didn't add up.
Can I ask
He
you, Bob?
he did pay off the TARP. That's right, the second part of the TARP, but that was started by George Bush, correct?
No, the first part was, but the second
but
part was.
Why do you get the benefit without
Exactly.
taking the hit?
You can't have it both ways.
The stimulus didn't count toward his spending? But let me ask you this.
It does count towards it.
But the jobs that were created out of the stimulus do count. You can't have it both ways. It's either it did count or it didn't count.
Okay, the stimulus, the first checks went out January 1st. There have been 4.5 million jobs created since the stimulus went into effect.
But you want to count that on his spending, or you don't want to count that on
Well, of
Obama's
course you're going to count that on spending.
Well,
That's
then
why you have
If
stimulus.
you're going to count it on the spending, then the spending has increased, Bob. The only way it hasn't increased is if you remove stimulus.
It increased the stimulus by $800 billion. That was the
almost
spending.
$1 trillion, yeah.
But which a big chunk of that was in tax cuts, which you love. The rest of it, if you don't have it, you don't put people back to work, and we'd be in a worse recession than we were.
You love why do you keep making these
when
comments?
President Obama says the rate of increase in spending is lower than other presidents,
It's true.
if you take out things like stimulus. But if you want to take it out, then take the jobs created out too. Then
Actually, it's still higher if you take out
if you-
stimulus and TARP. It's still
Still higher.
8% higher, Bob. And
this
that's what the
dog will not
president
hunt.
can't explain. That's right.
Well, it'll hunt because, okay, then.
And the only reason he agreed to some form of spending cuts was because the Tea Party, which you don't like, actually bullied him and said we're not going to raise the debt ceiling.
They bullied
so
him.
he had to make cuts.
They
and
are
by the way,
bullies,
you
that's
talk
for
about
sure.
Homeland Security. I think lefties and I think Democrats like Homeland Security too.
Look, okay, a lot
an
of spending
important thing.
on Homeland Security. You like that? Fine, let's put that in. And you say it went up 8%. A lot of that Social Security, Medicaid. You want to do away with Social Security, Medicaid? You guys want to do away with it from the beginning anyway.
We want to reform it, but Democrats don't.
Why
so
not?
that's
Yeah,
a
you want to
moot
reform
point.
it. You want to turn it over to the insurance companies, is what you want to do, and to Wall Street. But if you take those accounts, you do have to pay for Social Security, Medicare. It hasn't changed. The Democrats have not been good on it. The Republicans have not been good on it. But when you talk about spending, you have got to include the cost of people coming into those two programs, and it is enormous.
Okay, well then why don't you do something about it? So as president, you set the tone and you set the agenda. And he had the perfect opportunity when Simpson Bowles came forward with their plan. He'd probably be at 70% approval rating right now if he had said, let's do something like that. And then if the Congress had refused to go along, he could have at least said, at least I'm trying to address the problem so that we can preserve these programs in the long run. He hasn't even done that.
Simpson Bowles was supposed to be able to go to the Congress automatic onto the floor, no committees, no amendments, no filibuster.
Even you admitted he dropped the ball on that, Bob. Even you
Eight
admitted that.
Republicans dropped off of it in the Senate and said it didn't have to be a mandatory vote.
But to Dana's point, what he's basically admitting right now is he's just throwing his hands up and saying, I surrender. This problem was created. I'm going to use a really shady accounting trick, and I'm just going to blame everything on George W. Bush and say, after 2009, I'm not responsible. And so I guess he's really not then the president of the United States. He's not a strong leader.
Do you believe, let's take yourself, if you could remember back to this day 4 years ago, do you think we're better off as a country today economically than we were 4 years ago?
Slightly.
No.
And here's
No,
the
I
thing.
don't.
You're out of your mind.
We're $16 trillion in the hole. We were $10 trillion, not less than $10 trillion then.
$2 trillion of that went to Social Security.
Whatever,
Medicare.
we're still
And
in debt.
Another trillion
Bob.
of that went
Bob, I
to
don't
the
know how
wars.
We're not hemorrhaging.
Wars he didn't start.
We're not hemorrhaging the jobs that we were, but think of he
We're
had
adding
the
jobs.
biggest checkbook out of any president to fix this economy. He had the purse strings of bigger than any president, and he failed. Think about that. Unprecedented levels of spending, of tax money.
Unemployment's been coming down
now
and
we're
down
borrowing
and
$1
down.
trillion every
And
year.
I'll tell you something, the difference is that he, unlike the Bush administration, included the cost of Iraq and Afghanistan as part of his budget. Why didn't they do that? Does anybody have an answer to that?
Because it wasn't going to be written into the Defense Department budget for year after year, because it was not going to be something that was permanent. That's why they did it that way.
Well,
And President Obama has asked for more money than the Congress has given him every year. George Bush's last budget was a 3.5% increase in spending, pretty much inclusive of those programs that you talked about, Medicare and Social Security. There were cuts across the board. President Obama has not proposed that, and the Senate Democrats have not passed a budget in over
Did
3.5,
President
4 years.
Bush and his vice president did they include the cost of those budgets of those wars in that?
In the baseline budget, no, but for the reasons I just said, which I
Okay,
think were
because
good
you
reasons,
thought it
because you don't want to write that into the Defense Department budget so that they never get cut.
We've always written them in wars into defense budgets.
I don't know if that's true. I just know how that one was.
So $4 trillion in spending, and we've only been a little bit better.
No.
That's it.
Can someone take Greg's
that's
gag
terrible
off?
2
results.
trillion in excuse me, Greg, you're bored with all this, I can tell.
You got plans for the weekend?
I feel bad for you. You haven't said a word.
What a terrible conversation. It's like two guys talking about a bar tab they ran up drinking. Just stop drinking. Stop complaining about the damn bill and stop drinking. At least the Republicans admit they got a drinking problem. You can't even get the Democrats to admit that.
And they drink,
Pathetic.
they drink twice as much.
And I don't
See, they drink more than anybody. They're the worst drunks alive because they won't pay their own bar tab.
Very importantly, hold on, the most
Make me
important thing
sick.
that
I'm
came
gonna
out of this-
drink after
the
this
most
show.
important thing that came out of this segment, Dana said, leading with the chin. That's a great metaphor.
I'm going to throw out a few sports metaphors here.
I don't even know what that means. I know a little bit about drinking, Greg, and I will say this: despite the fact you're in bars all the time, I don't think you're an alcoholic. So there you go. I want your wife to pay attention to that. Coming up, I love the fact that the media and the president have been all over Mitt Romney's record of paying capital, and justifiably so. But some of my co-hosts, of course, aren't happy that the same media aren't covering the Catholic lawsuits, the 11 of them, over Obamacare. We'll be talking about that when we come back. And don't forget to tune in to Fox News Channel tonight at 9 p.m. for a Frank Luntz focus group special. Yes, great.